This podcast is brought to you by Soapbox. Start your own podcast today at www.soapbox.host. This podcast is brought to you by Soapbox. Start your own podcast today at www.soapbox.host.
Welcome to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Season 3, Episode 4. Tonight, we will continue the story of Tate Rowland and the mysterious murders that occurred in Childress, Texas during the height of the Satanic Panic. As always, my name is Nick, and joining me are Aaron and Frank.
Hello, hello. Howdy.
So, guys, we're back to discussing our first true crime episode.
Closing it out.
Yes.
Nice lighthearted one.
I don't think we can get a part 3 with this unless we go painstakingly slow.
Or you do your own research.
Or yes, and then we have a follow-up of where maybe all those people who were accused went to.
They all moved to the East Bronx, Palm Bay Park.
Mm-hmm. But we'll get our shout-outs out of the way. Shout out to my mother, who's very excited for this episode to come out. Shout out to David Hoy.
Shout out to the 100 men that would defeat a gorilla. Obviously, and if you don't think that's true, you're dumb.
Do you want to keep that in?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all for me. That's Aaron.
Yeah, no, I think years from now, when we go back and listen to this, we're just gonna be like, what the heck is going on here?
I'll be vindicated.
Yeah, sure. Shout out to Fallon, and Nick, you forgot a shout out. Shout out to Troy from yourself.
Oh, good point. Good point. So last we left off, we had talked about kind of the setup as to what actually happened to Tate Rowland. We started out with Michelle and her meeting Mary, who was talking about these weird dreams that probably weren't dreams. And then we've kind of backtrack to before Mary moved down to Lockhart and first met Michelle, and what was happening in Childress, Texas, and going into the details of Tate Rowland and kind of his background, but ultimately getting into his death and also what happened following that. Lots of rumors being spread, shoddy police work, pentagrams being drawn in cemeteries, all this stuff.
Now, Nick, while editing this episode, or part 1, I should say, I had the chance to, hear the story, the first part of the story twice, and you really filled it like chock full with details. And so there were some that I kind of missed on the first pass. One of them was there was a point where Tate was he was like, he got in trouble with the police or something, and he was just raving about like being in the cult, right?
Yeah. Yes, he was in
and, like,
the
satanic stuff going on. I totally
he was in
forgot
the drunk
that.
tank. He was in the drunk tank one night, making a scene in some town that they used to like. Him and the like guys would gallivant over there, and yeah, he was like drunkenly saying that to the deputy that was on duty that night, and other people on duty that night heard the same thing.
I think I missed that the first time you said that, because that kind of changes what I said at the end of the last episode, where I was like, I don't know, whatever. He was saying it, he was making public claims about it.
Right.
Well, so was he was in the drunk tank because he was actually drunk, or
yes.
because
he was actually drunk.
Okay. Just
is
want
my
to qualify your
understanding.
statement there.
Yeah, he was at a party or like some school dance or something, and he was drunk like near the dance floor, and he got thrown in the drunk tank for the night after the police were called that there was a disturbance.
Gotcha.
And he only got away with like a fine because he kind of smooth talked his way out with the it's not justice of the peace. Maybe it is what that is called. But yeah.
Classic Tate.
But we had ended part 1 with his sister Teri showing up dead. if you recall.
Yes.
And now that this is where things get even crazier, just in a more true crime way. So Brenda, if you remember, that's Tate's stepmother, and I think also Teri's stepmother, obviously. After Tate had died, she said that Teri had kind of gone a bit crazy, like a couple years following his hanging. She was 26 at the time. She had 4 kids, but she started, drinking, doing drugs, sleeping around a bit when her husband was working out of town. And it was for the drugs. It was like she was popping pills, stuff like that. And she got involved with the Wilkses and the Bradfords, who we had discussed as pretty bad dudes. Last episode.
The kid crashing, right? The kid crashing, the 15-year-old Wilkes kid crashing into the pole or something.
That was Ray Wilkes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so Reese Bowen, who again was the junior deputy and actually knew how to be a police officer. He's quoted as saying, "The Wilkes were a bunch of poor redneck scumbags."
Oh my God.
Yeah, so they're not, and I had already said that some of them had felonies charges, so not great. But a guy named Ricky Bradford, who just people that the Wilkes associated with, that was who Teri kind of got hooked up with, in a sense, basically, because I said she had been sleeping around. That's kind of who she was with. And he had been to prison for aggravated assault. His brother was even worse, his brother Larry. So just bad people. And no one could really understand why Teri would want to be involved with these people. But Teri kept saying that she was essentially sleeping with the devil, trying to get info on Tate's death because she thought they were involved. And one day she tells Jimmy, Tate's father, and Brenda that, quote, "If anything happens to me, you all look at Ricky Bradford because I'm getting close on Tate's death."
Oh.
She said that less than 30 days before she died, according to Brenda.
Oh my God.
And so to get some more background on the Wilkses and the Bradfords. So Ricky, who Teri was kind of hooked up with, he was best friends with Darwin Wilkes, who was Ray Wilkes's older brother, which, as you alluded to, Frank, that's the teenage boy who crashed the car into the police or into the the telephone pole, and told the police he was part of some group that sacrificed Tate Rowland.
Yeah. And
so everyone in Childress was convinced, as we talked about last time, that there was, or, after all those people left, there had been some kind of satanic activity in the community.
Yeah. But
people couldn't imagine the Wilkses and the Bradfords being involved. They were described as beer swilling, pill popping badasses, but probably in a negative way.
Yeah.
These people were real descriptive.
I know, right? And you might be thinking, okay, you can seem like you're just a bunch of hillbillies and not involved in some satanic stuff. And you guys might be thinking, well, Ray said he was a part of this group. But Frank Wilkes, the father, pointed out that his son Darwin was in the Childress County Jail the day and night that Tate was hanged, and Ray was in the Amarillo Youth Detention Center. So they could not have directly been involved.
What great alibis.
They were literally like not detained, but like imprisoned in some way capacity.
That's crazy.
Also, Nick, what language did you take in high school?
Spanish, but this is Texas, so they're pronouncing it Amarillo.
Okay, sure.
How would you pronounce it, Aaron?
So, Amarillo.
Amarillo. 2 L's makes the Y sound.
You don't know if they're talking in English or Spanish, though.
Link to the Spanish language in the show notes.
Yeah, the entire Spanish language.
In any case, Teri had thought and insisted that people in those 2 families knew something about how Tate died, and she wanted to get it out of them. So that's why she got involved. And Teri was there was like a party basically at the Wilkes' house. They were gonna, drink, do drugs, some other activities. And this happened on the night of May 30th, 1991. And Ricky Bradford would tell the city police that Teri went to bed with him after drinking heavily, got up at one point, staggered around the living room, collapsed, and was helped back into the bed. And then at about 9:30 the next morning, Ricky is quoted as saying, "I just touched her and she was cold and stiff. I didn't even look at her. I just got up and I informed everybody that I thought she was dead."
What?
And one of the cops who took his statement described his tone and expression as, quote, "flat as a fence post."
Just like...
So kind of similar to Chad.
Yeah.
So again, this like no remorse or just lack of caring about what happened. And to Bowen, he's just like, okay, this is incredibly suspicious. But a different police department had jurisdiction over the case, and that chief, a man named Billy Don Hinton, seemed to be right off the tractor, like Sheriff Lane, who also conducted some very poor police work. Chief Hinton goes over to the house, just kind of saunters through. Everyone tells him the story that she just drowned in her own vomit, and he goes, "Yep, sounds about right." And that's it. That's what this chief thinks. And so, yep.
Yeah, the only thing I would say with maybe the stoic response is maybe because, he's had a brush with the law, right? So,
he might just not trust police officers.
That, or he doesn't want to go back to jail. And so he's trying not to show any emotion and be like all freaked out because you're showing guilt, or,
That's a good point. Well, to kind of muddy the waters here about this, the district attorney, McCoy, questioned Hinton a year later in court. And this is what Hinton had to say. He was asked if he was suspicious of the splotches of blood near the pillows and sheets that were by her mouth. And he said not particularly. And also there was a small pool of blood near her vagina.
Oh.
And McCoy asked, could that have indicated, or at the time, did that indicate to you that it might be a homicide? And Chief Hinton says no. And just said that people explained to him at the scene that she was on her period. Could be true, but still very very odd if she was just left there bleeding.
Yeah.
So
dark.
And so McCoy asks him, so like everyone told you that it wasn't a murder and you believed everybody. And he said, yep. So again, very, very bad police work here. And Bowen recalled that there was blood on the car parked at the house and blood on the car door. But Bradford and Wilkes, I imagine probably Darwin Wilkes, not Ray, they told Hinton a story that some fight broke out, and Hinton was like, yep, sounds about right. And one of Hinton's officers actually did scrape the blood off the car, probably like a normal, law enforcement officer. Hinton didn't want it tested.
What?
And yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And so we then go to Dr. Ralph Erdman, who was the pathologist for the state, like for the state of Texas, probably just in that area, not the entire state, but he was assigned to do the autopsy on Teri. And what he found in the autopsy actually concurred with what Chief Hinton had concluded, that she suffocated on her own vomit. And that was that.
But like, from what? Like,
well, so a blood test did show that her BAC, or her blood alcohol content, so BAC, was 0.23. And remember, the legal standard of intoxication is 0.08.
Oh man. So
you might be thinking, okay, maybe that is what happened, but we'll get back to that in a bit. I just want to after this, some more things start to, it's like a chain reaction in Childress. So Sheriff Lane kind of has some issues. On a summer day in 1990, the sheriff department took a call from a farmer who said that some people were walking along a country road carrying trash bags. And when the farmer saw them and they saw that he saw them, they panicked, dropped the bags and ran away. And a car picked them up with two other men in it, according to the farmer. When the farmer looked inside, he believed that he saw a lot of marijuana. And obviously this is the early 90s. No legalization. I don't think
they're going to say a body, but
no,
even worse,
a lot of marijuana. And so Deputy Bowen, our competent hero here, he was on duty and drove out there to where the bags were dropped. And in a few hours, Bowen and a local game warden discovered a boxcar next to a barn that was filled with hundreds of marijuana plants, dozens of drying racks, and a table covered with 1 pound bags of weed that looked to be ready to be sold. After they found all that, they apprehended a father and son who were the ones transporting the marijuana in the back of their pickup truck. So now the DEA gets involved because it's a lot of marijuana. And the DEA agents worked alongside Sheriff Lane for some time, but their investigation led them to a very interesting conclusion. The sheriff was the man who had been growing the marijuana.
Oh.
Bowen rushes over to the courthouse to learn that his boss has been arrested, and he and a second deputy were on the steps of the courthouse. And as Sheriff Lane's being walked out by the DEA agents, he is quoted as saying, "It ain't true, boys." So I want you to think just for quick before we continue. If we believe the DEA is correct and Sheriff Lane is responsible for this large-scale drug operation, now it makes a lot more sense why he didn't want a lot going on when investigating Tate's death. because it would potentially draw attention that he did not want, because it would interfere with his drug operation. And so
that's a lot to process.
He wanted to just put it under the rug, like kind of be like, yep, it's a suicide, call it at that. So there's not any unwanted attention in Childress.
I don't know. I think those evil DEA agents are just cult members that don't want the truth to get out. So they had to get rid of the cop.
Well, no, Sheriff Lane was the one who ruled Tate's death a suicide and basically didn't want to investigate it thoroughly at all.
Yeah, but they thought he was going to crack.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so what?
So, yeah, before I move on, you guys caught up now?
So, if that's the case, that
and also I should know, I am speculating that he didn't want the attention because he was running a drug operation. And that's why the police work for Tate's death was so poorly managed.
If the allegations are true and he did suppress, a proper investigation into the death of that kid, what a terrible person. What an evil person.
I know.
I would say evil person regardless. Because,
there's no...
He's committing many crimes.
That's true.
Under the guise of being an enforcer of the law. I don't know.
With no background in law enforcement, remember?
Yeah. So, sounds like somebody wanted to be above the law.
Right. And funny enough, actually, so people in the town, especially like a group called the Childress Coffee Slurpers Club, which are basically a bunch of the business owners in town. They didn't want, they also didn't want people to not come to Childress and obviously produce commerce. So in January 1991, they gave the sheriff their vote of confidence. But by June of that year, he had been removed from office. And on September 4th in 1991, he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison. He was convicted on running the marijuana operation, but also stealing $9,600 from the sheriff's department, as well as filching much of the marijuana that had been booked into evidence by Deputy Bowen.
So it's pretty confirmed that he did it. He went to jail for it. What the hell is going on here? Man, to live in that time period where you just get away with anything, well, I guess you can't get away with everything.
What happened to the Coffee Slurpers Club? Like, you give this guy a vote of confidence and then he commits massive crimes.
That sounds like a cult.
Is there any action that was taken against them? Like, you can't give a vote of confidence and then be like, wait a minute, he wasn't actually that good. What are you guys up to in the Coffee Slurpers Club? They're the distributors.
Yeah.
It goes deeper.
Man, to be a fly on the wall back then, and to be able to observe any of these things would be interesting.
So after Sheriff Lane was arrested and is now gone, Deputy Bowen was appointed as sheriff on June 18th of 1991. And he's like, all right, time to try to work on this Teri and Tate connection that Brenda thinks exists. Because Bowen had always been bothered that Tate's hanging was so poorly investigated. And now that his sister died under mysterious circumstances, to him, it sounded like there has to be something.
I think that Deputy Bowen planted the marijuana farm
because he's such a bad sheriff.
Yeah, he planted the evidence on the sheriff to get him arrested so that he could get the promotion.
So then he can do the proper investigation so he can crack the case and
Yes.
Figure out the cult.
It was all in the pursuit of justice.
So a lot of people had said Teri a little before Tate died that he warned her to keep her children indoors because the cult was going to sacrifice one of them in some kind of ritual. And almost as many other people also kept saying that Teri was investigating Tate's hanging because she didn't think it was a suicide. And so after the 4th of July in 1991, the DA, McCoy, Bowen arranged with him to get Tate's remains exhumed. And end of July of that year, McCoy filed a motion to a judge to disinter his body, and it went through.
Wow.
However, it was, you thought things were getting crazy now. After Tate's body came out of the ground, things got even crazier.
How could they possibly?
The body wasn't there.
No. So one, Tate's casket, he was buried in a wooden casket and then put into a concrete vault. But because the vault didn't get sealed properly, the casket rotted and his body was very badly decomposed.
Ugh.
And this is where things get very interesting. They did get one new fact from the autopsy. Tate had traces of Elevil in what was left of his vital organs. Apparently, Elevil is some kind of tranquilizer.
Oh.
And if you're not used to taking it, it will relax you into a semi-conscious state. So I want you to think, Elevil in his system. Did he hang himself or was he drugged to be hanged?
Oh man.
People who knew Tate very well were adamant he did not use any drugs. If someone just lit up a joint, he would kind of walk away. Like he drank, and a lot of people drank back then, but he never did any drugs aside from drinking alcohol. And so the forensic pathologist, Dr. Sparks VC, first name Sparks, I guess, also confirmed the 2 separate rope burns that were on his neck. And he suggested the possibility and even a likelihood that he was choked and then hanged. However, because his remains were pretty decomposed, he couldn't draw a definitive conclusion on that. Also, the sheriff's department, now under Reese Bowen, got a new chief deputy, a man named Kevin Overstreet. And he examined the photos of Tate's body, the one good thing that was done back then. And he noted that both bruises on his neck were straight line marks. And usually in hangings, there's an inverted V bruise on the neck. So Dr. VC agreed that was more evidence that points to the possibility that maybe Tate was already dead by the time he was hung up at Boxer's corner.
Oh, so potentially killed and then
staged
to hanging.
Yes. And now I'm about to tell you something that really makes this even more interesting. VC, this pathologist, did the autopsy on Teri. She also had Elevil in her system.
What?
So
is that like a common tranquilizer?
So I don't know much about the drug itself. I was going to look more into it, and I just forgot.
Link in the show notes.
Link in the show notes about Elevel. Yes.
There wasn't like an outbreak of, it wasn't like a trend to use it as far as anyone knows.
Yeah, I don't believe so. So Overstreet got assigned, so this new deputy, to investigate Tate's death and Teri's death now as possible homicides. He said Overstreet was kind of crestfallen a bit because any tire tracks, footprints, anything from back in 1988 when Tate died, nothing was looked at. The rope itself wasn't even saved for evidence. There was no autopsy, no forensic examination. All there were the photographs. But Overstreet was built different. He was well-spoken, attended college, took classes with state agencies, was able to talk and understand forensic exams and toxicology reports. So a much more just educated
professional
law enforcement. Yes. More than obviously what the town had prior to this. And I think this is this is not super important, but Reese did, kind of get a bit outshined by him at times, but it never hindered the investigation. There was never any like professional jealousy that affected the investigation. So Overstreet read the interviews that Michelle Gomez did in March of 1989. And he also looked at the drawings she made, if you remember, from part 1. And he said that they were remarkable. And it was very odd that Michelle, who had never been to Childress, could have so much detail in these pictures about Tate's death and everything. So Overstreet arranges a trip to go meet with Michelle, and he was impressed again. Her story was consistent, and she seemed very afraid that the people Mary were involved with were dangerous, and she was afraid of Mary, obviously, for the knife incident. And strangely, though, no one said anything to Overstreet about this whole satanic cult connection until he talked to Michelle about it. And then when he got back to Childress, he read reports about these cult sites that were investigated. And Overstreet is, he was like, something's going on here. But it looks like everything was shut down. The people who were accused of being involved, as I said before, they're all gone. And it struck him as strange that happened too, because it just seemed a bit convenient that after all this is coming out in the open, if it's true, all these people left. But there wasn't a lot to go on because all this was, 2 years earlier. But Overstreet did decide on one thing. Interview Chad Johnston again.
Smart. That little creep.
Yes.
Didn't he move away?
Yes. So he arranged to meet with him at his new home, which was 200 miles away.
Wow.
And the whole point of this was to basically confront Chad with the new evidence that Tate was choked, and then the rope got put on him, and then he was hanged. And Chad changed his story again. We know that he changed his story when this all happened, more than once. And now he changed the story again, saying that when they arrived at Boxer's Corner, he said Tate tried to kill himself. And then Chad quotes Tate saying, "I can't even kill myself," after the rope broke. Then Chad and Tate drove back to Childress, got another rope, and then Tate was able to successfully hang himself.
Even that story just makes him an accomplice, though, right?
Yeah. Well, so again, it's noted here by Randall that there was a plausible explanation for why he lied back in 1988. Chad said he was afraid people would think he was responsible. So if he admitted to watching Tate hang himself, then they'd think he was involved. Yeah, sure. You could sympathize with that, but Chad changed his story 2 more times after this. And Overstreet was convinced that he needed to have Chad take a polygraph exam. He arranged for it to take the lie detector test 3 different times across 1991 and 1992, and Chad canceled every time.
You can just cancel that? Hey, we'd like to call you in for questioning.
What are they going to do?
Nah, I'm busy that day.
They going to drag you like kicking and screaming?
If you're suspected of murder, I would hope so.
Well, they probably didn't have enough to like keep him or force him to do it, and there was no court order. So Overstreet was pretty frustrated, but you want to hear something really, really weird? Back in 1988, Chad had a prescription for Elevil.
It is an antidepressant. I looked it up.
Well, yeah, I knew it was probably an antidepressant.
Yeah, I think it was originally designed to treat schizophrenia.
So Chad had a prescription for it back in 1988.
Nick.
Teri has it in her system. Even in Tate's decomposed remains, he has traces of Elevil in his system.
Wait, so how did Teri get it, though? Because Chad moved away before Teri died, right?
Right. But remember, Ray Wilkes said he was a part of some cult that killed Tate. If that is true, and the Wilkes / maybe the Bradfords did have some involvement, they might have had Elevil. Also, it is noted that they were pill poppers, these families, so they may have just gotten it anyway.
Fair.
Yeah.
So but after this, Chad's mother became very, very hostile, and she said nobody's talking to Chad anymore about Tate. So we're now in the autumn of 1991. Bowen and Overstreet get the DA to convene a grand jury to look into the deaths, and in early December, the grand jury submitted a request that Teri's body now get exhumed so that a second autopsy can be done. It somehow gets worse from here in terms of the sheer inanity of what's happening.
Oh.
Teri's bodies, she gets disinterred. Her vault was sealed, so much better shape. Much better condition. She looked like she did the day she was buried. That was actually a big problem for the state pathologist, Dr. Ralph Erdman, who I had mentioned before. So Erdman performed the autopsy on Teri on the first day of June in 1991, and he was known as the best pathologist in West Texas, testifying at hundreds of criminal trials, including very high-profile murder cases. People had said there was kind of an an unwritten rule that if you went to Erdman before he did an autopsy, he'd ask the law enforcement officers, "What are you trying to prove?" And then he'd do the autopsy, and it would back up what they wanted to prove. So at the second autopsy, Erdman was one of the doctors there, but so was Dr. Sparks Vesey, who we had talked about also earlier. There was one pretty big problem here. Vesey saw right away that all of Teri's organs were in place. They weren't removed, even though Erdman claimed he did so in the autopsy he did.
What?
His report had the weight of her brain, but her head had no cut. Like normally there's a way that you cut open the head to get the brain to weigh it. He didn't do that. Vassie looked at Erdman. Erdman looked at Vassie, and Erdman knew it was kind of over there. So in Vesey's autopsy report, he detailed the false claims in Erdman's original one. There was the classic Y-shaped cut on Teri's body when you do the autopsy to take out the organs, but none of them were removed. There was no cut at the top of her skull, like I said, for getting the brain removed. And it was just pandemonium because Erdman was doing autopsies for 40 counties in the Texas panhandle for the past 20 years.
Oh my God. How
many cases did he do?
What?
Hundreds of criminal trials.
But was there any proof he ever faked multiple, or is it just this one?
Well, if it's kind of an old, so Bowen said that what I said about Erdman, that he'd ask you what you want to prove and then he'd prove it with the autopsy. Yeah. That's what like old time people in law enforcement would say. So he's been doing it for a while.
Oh man.
And now the grand jury for this case is like huge news for the town. And Dr. Erdman pleaded no contest to 7 felonies, and he lost his medical license.
Did he go to jail?
Obviously. It doesn't actually say. I don't know what pleading no contest means.
Doesn't that mean he like admits guilt?
No, that's pleading guilty.
Doesn't no contest mean like I'm not even going to pretend to no, it doesn't mean you don't admit guilt, but you're just not going to you're just going to accept whatever happens.
It seems, yeah. So you accept the criminal conviction, but you do not admit guilt.
Okay.
So you're like, whatever, I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to take it.
So he took 7 felony charges and lost his medical license. And there were, the DA claimed that he had been receiving death threats from people who warned him to shut down the grand jury. And the people in Childress were living through kind of this, as we have alluded to, the satanic panic.
Sure.
And this whole thing, we won't get into the details of it, but this whole thing starts in 1980 when a book called Michelle Remembers was published. I'll link that in the show notes. A good chunk of this chapter talks about that book and about kind of where the satanic panic originated, or like how it started. So in March of 1992, there is a lot of attention in Childress, everything that happened with the pathologists, all this new evidence that's coming up. Almost 3 years after Michelle Gomez, who is our Michelle, sent her drawings, Ricky Bradford is arrested for the murder of Teri. So the grand jury, sorry, I thought that was the end of the chapter. It's not. My bad. The grand jury that was formed in response to finding the Ellevel in Tate's remains, along with more evidence from the photos with the rope burns, there's actually something now. There is a jury for it. It had taken the jurors only 1 week, though. They decided that Tate's death should be expanded to, or like the inquiry into Tate's death should also include his sister Teri after her body was disinterred. And the probe also should attempt to determine if a satanic cult had been involved in the deaths of either or both of the siblings. Journalists show up to Childress. There are television cameras. And the grand jury was meeting in secret, so reporters turned to, very, very reliable resources. The town's teenagers.
Oh boy. Oh, they must have had fun.
So, well, and think about at the beginning or not the beginning, but in part 1, the teens going out to the cemetery after Tate died and their experience getting like a car chasing after them, people jumping out. There's candles all around their cars and a giant pentagram and all the stuff the teenagers were saying even back then. We're 3 years later. And
also, weren't they just blaming everybody? Like, oh, I heard Susie is a cultist.
Lots of rumors.
Putting up the cross sign to that lady, right?
Yep. To Karen, I believe her name is.
Yeah.
So some of the stories that the teens were saying was there was a story about a boy who was eating pages from the Bible and foaming at the mouth.
What?
There was another story about a lamb that had its heart cut out and was found near a cotton gin. And there was another story about a local man who had proved he commanded the powers of Satan by pointing at a cat and commanding it to die.
Did it?
It doesn't say.
I'm just imagining he points at a cat, says die, and it just like goes about his business.
So it says that they also said the cult was meeting at like a mobile home factory. Oh, no, it was the dry cleaning store.
Sure.
So there were tons of rumors back in 1988 when Tate had first, like his death was fresh in the town, and it's happening again with crazy rumors. So some of the teenagers even led a camera crew to a spot near the Red River where they found a pile of stones that they said was an altar and what appeared to be, quote, burnt remains of a sacrificed animal nearby. So again, it's just teenagers doing teenager things. Obviously, these probably aren't real at all, but it's just funny anecdotes.
Just muddies the water so much so.
True, because I mean, what if there's an iota of truth, like the tiniest thing? But
yeah, and then you have to, like, every claim you hear, you have to think like, okay, was this said by a reputable person, like a law enforcement? Oh wait, you can't even trust that.
Yeah.
It's said by a teenager,
right?
It's insane.
So the DA McCoy, he did like the attention of the reporters. He liked filling up rooms at the local motels.
Oh boy.
And the reporters liked him because he liked to talk as well. So he also kind of, this was probably a little ego boost. He was enjoying talking about like the threats. Remember these death threats he was receiving? He liked talking about it publicly. Just kind of showing how strong he was, right? He's quoted as saying, "Someone called up on the phone and said, if I were you, I would look out for my life." And McCoy said he refused to be intimidated. So classic, like, political posturing by the DA and also now.
Yeah. Look at me. I'm getting death threats.
And it gets even a little more kind of gross from the DA because he appeared on the Halloween edition of the Maury Povich show. And Brenda remembered that he kind of went on there and talked Tate down, saying he was a smartass who always picked a fight he could never win. Because remember before
he said that about a kid that was hanged?
Yes, on the Maury Povich show.
That's crazy.
So he was in this for the glory, and Brenda didn't trust him really now that he was kind of taking this approach. So McCoy, though, did describe Chad's testimony, obviously basically useless, saying that he had been cocky on the witness stand and he told the Index, which is a magazine, and the magazine reported that the witness, who has given authorities at least 4 versions of what happened on Monday, claimed the rope used in hanging Rowland was already in the tree when he left Rowland to get a beer in the trunk of the car. The youth, now 18, said Rowland had hanged himself when he returned. So that's a excerpt from the index. So again, at least 4 versions of what happened. And he's 18 now. Remember, he was 14 or 15 back then when Tate was killed. And so Chad offered 3 different descriptions of what he knew about how Tate had hung himself. He said Tate jumped from the bumper of the car one time. A different time, he said that Tate slid off the car. And the third time, he said he went to throw a beer can away and came back and found Tate already hanging. So, like,
those aren't the details that, are so tiny that, you forget and you make up that change in your memory, right? Those are just completely different accounts.
Exactly. And I mean, everyone she talked to was pretty suspicious that Chad had told like 7 or 8 versions of what happened, still would not take the lie detector test. And so Brenda and a lot of other people were confused by also the testimony of a cotton farmer who said that while out plowing his field that afternoon that Tate died, he had seen 2 boys come out to the hanging tree, then leave together. So if that's true, then Tate is assuming those 2 boys were Tate and Chad. They went to the tree that Tate was found hanging by and then left together as well.
Or was it an accomplice in Chad?
Oh, yeah, true. I don't know. Well, the farmer didn't say he then saw Tate hanging from the tree, though.
Maybe they went in advance to scope out the spot, then drugged him and hanged him there.
Maybe. So this now we're getting back to the Wilkses and the Bradfords. So they were receiving a lot more attention from their neighbors, the Wilkses. And according to the testimony of one of the officers who arrested Ray Wilkes back in 1988 when he ran the car into the telephone pole, Ray had said that he was with a group of people when Tate was, quote, sacrificed. Ray also is quoted as saying, all of the cops were fooled by the way it was done. And he boasted that he was, quote, the son of the devil, and that no one could hurt him because he had given his soul to the devil. Ray, who is also now like 18, insisted he has no memory of saying that to the police, and he was not part of a satanic group that sacrificed Tate Rowland. He said he had no memory of saying that.
No memory of saying that.
Yep. This is what he's quoted as saying. I don't remember saying anything because I was so drunk. And then he denied any knowledge of Tate's death beyond anything he heard or read.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, shortly after this, Darwin Wilkes, Ray's older brother, had attempted suicide, leaving behind a note in which he wrote down he knew how Teri really died and couldn't live with it. He was revived and said he didn't remember writing that note.
Oh my God.
What? Wait, were they trying to kill him?
I think the cult is not in Childress anymore.
Well, fucking somebody
is everyone just drunk nonstop in this region at this time period?
The Wilkses and the Bradfords, yes. Tate, sometimes.
I mean, not anymore.
Not anymore. And now Ricky, who I said before was eventually indicted on this, was under suspicion. So we'll kind of get to those details. So basically, the grand jury finished their deliberations before Christmas, but they did not indict anyone at this time. But they refused to say that Tate's death was a suicide or Teri's death was accidental. And so they recommended that the local law enforcement keep investigating. So Overstreet, with Sheriff Bowen's support, kept looking into the deaths as homicides, trying to maybe, get more information out of Chad or the Wilkes brothers and Ricky Bradford. Nothing really came trying to get Chad to say stuff about Tate in that case, but he did get a break in Teri's case. So before noon on March 6th of 1992, Frank and Darwin Wilkes went to the Childress County Sheriff's Department together, and they told Sheriff Bowen and Chief Deputy Overstreet that during a barbecue in their backyard the previous night, Ricky Bradford admitted to killing Teri and threatened to kill them if they snitched. And according to Darwin, Ricky had been provoked by questions he was being asked about Teri's death and blurted out, quote, "Yes, I killed the bitch." And immediately after saying that, Ricky promised to burn down Frank's house and cut out Darwin's eyes if they said anything to anyone.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So everyone kind of learns that Ricky Bradford gets arrested for Teri's murder.
I think he did it.
And the index reported the following morning that was the case. That's how they found out. And the index also quoted Bradford as claiming that he hadn't said a word to anyone in the Wilkes family about Teri's death. And Darwin Wilkes set him up to collect the $1,000 reward being offered for, information about the case. Darwin did actually collect the $1,000. So maybe he set him up, but
okay, but you'd be stupid not to collect it.
Right.
That doesn't change if he did it or not. It's like,
right. It gets a little more weird here because a few weeks after Ricky Bradford got arrested, Darwin submitted to a polygraph exam, and the examiner found his answers to questions about knowing things related to Teri's death to have been deceptive. And Darwin then tells another paper or magazine, "The cops were trying to frame me, but hell, I was asleep that whole time she was supposed to have been killed."
Not that I trust this guy or the family at all, but like polygraph tests aren't real. They're not used for real, you know?
But this is the 90s, right? They probably held a bit more weight back then. This is 30
not
years
in reality,
ago.
but like in public consciousness, like.
Exactly, yeah.
Sure.
So, it's unlikely that the Wilkes or Ricky Bradford were part of a satanic cult. That's, again, people didn't think that they were. But Bradford's arrest had people wondering if it's the classic, like, do I know anyone in my town? Like, can I trust anybody?
Sure.
Apparently, just to add another little gruesome detail, a few days after Ricky was arrested, a white cat with its heart cut out was found on a road just outside the city limits. So again, it's just like all the talk of all this satanic stuff from before, and now all this evidence about the terrible policing, the corrupt pathologist, the new evidence. It's like just one more thing. And so, oh, sorry, yeah, go.
No, just what a mess. I mean, I can imagine what it must have felt like to live through this.
Right. And you're in a small town of like a few thousand people, and most people are poor.
There's nothing much else to do, right? Besides like, think about this.
Right. And the Wilkeses and the Bradfords are now going at each other after Ricky gets arrested. Ricky's sister, I think it's pronounced Letitia Bloom. Ricky's sister, Letitia. Oh yeah, sorry. Letitia is Ray Wilkes' ex-girlfriend.
Oh boy.
She told a reporter, quote, "I've listened to Darwin say that he works for the devil and knows the devil personally." And Ricky's younger brother, Ronnie Bradford, is quoted as saying, "Them Wilkes brothers have been seen wearing black capes and doing Ouija boards and loading goats into a car. I ain't lying." So it's just
What?
it's just a ton of other stuff. And
Yeah.
then like the Wilkes brothers are saying we just do crazy things when we get pissed off. We say stuff we don't mean. It's like we don't believe in anything. We're atheists.
What?
So it's like, okay. And so a short time later, rumors again erupt. McCoy is preparing the murder charge against Ricky Bradford that he would obviously submit to the grand jury. His house burns down.
Oh.
The DA's house burns down. Again, this paper, the Index, described it as mysterious, but the fire marshal would eventually rule that the fire was accidental. But McCoy wasn't. McCoy didn't believe it was accidental himself.
Where was the guy? Who was like, "Oh, I'm gonna burn your house down"?
That was Ricky Bradford said he was going to burn down Frank Wilkes's house.
And was he detained at the time of the fire?
I mean, I
DA's
think
house?
I think if he was arrested for Teri's murder in early March and all this stuff is happening after he was arrested, he definitely had to be detained in some capacity.
Okay, I didn't know if like they arrested him and then like he was awaiting a trial and so he was like just at home,
Right.
or what the deal was, but
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't him.
are you sure?
He was arrested. He can't. He's not gonna just
What
get
if
let
he
out.
used some satanic magic to summon the fire?
Well, now you're talking. Kind of getting now to almost to the epilogue. A case is brought against Ricky LaWayne Bradford, and it looked like an open and shut case, but it was complicated by charges, counter charges from witnesses. The sheriff's department and the DA were receiving a steady stream of anonymous letters, making other criminal accusations against at least a dozen people that were allegedly connected to Tate and Teri's death.
Oh boy.
So the town of Childress was just, you could feel the air. It was heavy. What's
Charged.
the word? Yeah, charged with suspicion. There's another word I'm thinking of.
I think charged. No, it was buzzing.
I can't remember. No, I'll think of it later. But it was, lots of suspicion and denial in the air. And it
Rife?
seemed like, yeah, that's a good one. Rife with suspicion and denial. Everyone was looking over their shoulder. You know, everyone seemed to be on edge. Everyone seemed to be swiping things under the rug. But the main thing, according to Sheriff Bowen, that people were denying was the certainty that there truly had been a satanic cult of some kind operating. People didn't want to believe it. And again, that business community, those coffee slurpers, they just wanted to pretend that all the satanic stuff was just made up, mass hysteria, part of the satanic panic. It wasn't real. And the Chamber of Commerce, they found that people were passing through Childress. They were stopping by City Hall and the police department. They were asking if it was safe to drive out on Highway 83 after dark. So the Chamber of Commerce is feeling it because people have this perception of the town now. And so the business owners are furious when it appeared in print that a reporter from the Amarillo paper refused to cover Ricky Bradford's trial unless he was permitted to carry a pistol.
Oh boy.
Because he was
Boy.
that afraid for his life and what was going on.
Oh, I thought you meant that Ricky had to carry a pistol. I'm like, what the hell are you
No,
talking about?
no, the
I get
reporter.
it. Yeah,
the
yeah.
reporter.
He's like, don't send me. Don't send me there.
So on September 3rd, 1992, the Thursday before Labor Day, Ricky Bradford is convicted of capital murder with less than an hour of deliberations.
Wow.
He received a life sentence and was made eligible for parole after 15 years.
What? It's not a life sentence.
Well, just eligible for parole. He could be denied parole for his entire life, right? So Brenda says, she's quoted as saying, on the one hand, there was some relief because a person who was responsible for Teri's death was being sent away to prison. But on the other hand, and a lot of people, she thought, and a lot of other people thought that other people were involved in Teri's death. And a case couldn't be made that could connect Tate and Teri's death together.
Could not be made, you're saying?
Yeah, there was not enough to make a case to connect the two deaths. Ricky Bradford was convicted for Teri's death. No one was ever convicted for Tate's death, and no connection could be made between the two.
Here's a connection. The drug.
Right, but there wasn't further evidence that they could rely upon because the police work at the crime scenes for both of them was so poorly done that there was just, the evidence just wasn't there. And again, for Tate's case, all the people that were rumored to be a part of it, again, we can sit and argue, oh, if that was me, I would have left too. But they were all gone. So even if one of them was guilty of, or, you know, in cahoots with this cult, they were gone too, whether it was rumor or not. And so after Ricky gets convicted, the business community is pretty happy to kind of have this all be in the rearview mirror. They were wore out from both of the cases. Even the Sheriff Lane situation kind of left this stinging like feeling that just this distrust. And this is so funny, but Sheriff Lane actually returns to Childress after serving his 3 years in federal prison. He ran a 2-pump gas station for a few months before dying of a fatal heart attack. And to a lot of people in town, that death, albeit sad, kind of finally marked the end. That was like the final loose end, if you want to say, of this kind of grossness that people felt in the town. And Overstreet remembers saying, it's just like, you know, we were all sick of everything, all of this stuff. There was another murder that happened in the area. It ended up being called the baby murder case.
Ooh, yikes.
And that was when, after that case happened, the people in Childress kind of let go of Tate Rowland and the mystery surrounding his death, because they were just all fed up. Like they couldn't handle more of this. A lot of people also thought that this baby murder case kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back for Sheriff Bowen, who soon after that case was done, he announced his retirement.
I think I would too.
It was just a lot of things that compounded over the last couple of years, and he was done. He did make a formal declaration that Tate's case remained open, and obviously Chief Deputy Overstreet became sheriff and vowed to continue pursuing it. And he is stated saying they found evidence that his death was not a suicide. There was evidence that a satanic cult had been active in the area, and there was some connection there. But none of it, you couldn't get enough to make a concrete criminal case. And he was reading and rereading through the autopsy reports, and he's just thinking, how did Elevol get in both of their bloodstreams when they have no known? I guess Teri did start doing drugs, right, during all this time, but it's still odd that she had blood on her mouth, blood near her vagina, and that sheriff at the time just believed every single thing that people said and didn't actually do any investigating.
Well, because that's more work.
Exactly.
You don't have to do the work or any paperwork. Yeah, it was an accident.
And wrapping this up, Overstreet did end up leaving Childress a couple years later for a better job opportunity for himself. And out at Boxer's Corner, the grass still bent in a breeze that was filled with fine red dust. But one night, that tree that Tate Rowland was found hanging was cut down. That ends the story.
Wow. Nick, you delivered a dark banger. That sounds like something. I don't know what that sounds like.
It sounds like a metal song.
Yeah.
So yeah, after hearing now the entire story, all the details, what do you think happened to Tate Rowland?
I have more.
I mean,
go ahead.
I think something was going on in this town other than just, oh yeah, some random murders and random crimes and this, that, and the other. Dude, I don't think there was necessarily a satanic cult, but I'm not saying there wasn't. Like,
Frank?
There's There's too many coincidences for it to just be like one-off murders, or suicides or whatever.
I agree. Frank, what do you think?
It is so hard to know what life was like for those people in that part of the country at that time period, right? It's really different than any lifestyle I've lived at any point in my life. And even if it was a similar like lifestyle, it's still such a different time, such different access to information, and like the ability.
This summer, it will be 37 years since Tate's death.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. And just the way that the like pop culture or what was in like the zeitgeist at the time could really be much more focused or limited, I would say, because, you know, you think nowadays it's possible for people to like, it's possible for there to be a video that 1 billion people have seen and you haven't heard of it, right? There's so many different sources of information and entertainment and media and just information and all. Like back then, I could really imagine the satanic panic phenomena being all encompassing. But when you look into the stuff that started it, like that book that you mentioned, Nick, Michelle Remembers, it had such a strong impact, but it was complete bogus gibberish nonsense.
Yeah, a lot of the stories in there were unfounded or proven to be not true.
The lady claimed,
At least most of the details.
the lady claimed like she was tortured by like a satanic cult for like 81 days, and then also had everything magically healed. So there's no evidence. And then also people went and talked to the people in town. They were like, she never was gone for 81 days.
Yeah.
It was like channeling and like paranormal and super insane stuff. So I'm curious if you take that and that being in like the zeitgeist at the time, I don't doubt that there were things that maybe those teenagers or people just did to feel like part of that like phenomena.
I mean, we did say in part one, like the Satanic Bible was selling a lot.
Yeah, it was just like in people's minds, like, oh,
and there were other, weird satanic related murders and crimes happening in other parts of Texas at the time.
But was it coordinated cults, or was it like, messed up broke rednecks, as that, quote was, killing cats and taking out their hearts, going, we're like Satanists, that's what, let's scare people. It's so hard to tell.
I don't know.
I think it's terrible that, Tate's death will go unsolved probably forever.
I think by the time that people actually wanted to do real police work, Overstreet and Bowen working as a team, like I've been saying, all those people moved out. The evidence at the time and the like investigating the crime scene was all terrible. The rope wasn't even kept.
That's tragic, right? That's such an utter failing of law enforcement.
Right. And it could be that Sheriff Lane just did not want attention because he was running an illegal marijuana operation. And so his greed led to now a young young adult, like he died when he was like 17, of completely unsolved. And it could be his fault. There's no evidence to say that he covered this up to save his own tail, but it could be true.
I wouldn't be surprised if the truth is closest to there were young people, maybe a few, maybe more than a few, that got caught up in the idea that was in everyone's, like in the common consciousness, like satanic cult stuff. And we're kind of emulating that, and maybe inadvertently or purposefully killed Tate or influenced Tate's death. It has to be that or a actual cult, because you have so many people, admittedly while drunk, but like so many people talking about it. So we know for a fact that it was on everyone in the story's mind, right?
Right. And I mean, Tate had also said to Teri, and he said to Teri to, keep your kids inside because a cult wants to sacrifice them.
Was the cult like a bunch of teens that are like just terrible people? And they're just, I mean, I find it hard to believe there's like an organized, like religious, you know what I mean? Right. Like a hierarchical, or, everyone's got black robes made and they're all like uniform, like they got emblems and pins and a secret handshake. I find that unlikely. I think that there were elements of that, or people were trying to emulate that, and it caused deaths.
And we don't know what Teri may or may not have found out.
Yeah.
She may have actually found something connecting the Wilkes and the Bradfords, even though a lot of people in town didn't think they could be involved at all in any cult activity.
Yeah.
But we never found out.
We know those people, those families, right? And the kids in those families, at least, are violent and dangerous and do crazy things, right? like without speculating about anything, whether it be driving cars as a kid into poles or threatening to
Drunk.
Drunk, threatening to kill people. So I can imagine them being swayed by the idea of satanic cults and doing horrible things.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tate was definitely murdered. It was not a suicide.
I think so too.
Chad had to be involved in some capacity.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
But what was odd was Chad was kind of new in town when Tate came back from Louisiana after the whole thing with Karen and that not working out. I hope her name's Karen. I forget. But he comes back and like, yeah, he's upset and he's dealing with this, but people say he gets over it. But he's hanging out with this Chad kid who just moved into town. And he's like 3 years younger than him.
Maybe,
like, why?
Maybe those ideas started with Chad moving in. And like,
yeah, I mean, obviously Chad's family got a lot of heat and they moved.
Yeah, we'll never know.
And Chad's story changed a bunch of times. I hope Tate didn't get involved, but it you can't rule out the possibility that he got involved with something and decided, wait, this is actually wrong, and it unfortunately caused
maybe
this
he was
to
going to
happen.
yap about it and then was silenced.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to remember, Mary said that the parents who owned the haunted house where this cult met ran down a kid because they were afraid he was going to talk to the police.
That's so borderline. Is that organized cult or is that crazy?
You got to remember all this stuff with Mary too, and how Michelle knew all this information.
And then the visions of, I don't know. I don't know. I definitely have more questions than answers at the end of this. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's how true crime works typically.
No. Sometimes true crimes are solved, Nick. Unsolved crimes.
Yeah, this is BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But no, something that had to have happened.
And there were a lot of people at that party when Teri died. Everyone, it's pretty easy to be like, okay, just say she vomited when she was drunk and she's on her period. Pretty easy story to tell like a bunch of people to stick to. And I guarantee you all of those people at the party were not interviewed.
No.
The blood wasn't even tested that was scraped off the car.
Crazy.
Also, they didn't have to say they got in a fight. All they had to say is, oh, I had a nosebleed.
Right. Yeah. They could have said anything. Right.
Yeah.
So, that is the unfortunate story of Tate and Teri. I'm glad, at least for Teri, there was some justice. For Tate, I do still feel bad that there's nothing he could do about terrible police work. And it's very sad to die in that way so young. But that wraps up this 2-part series. I hope we all come away from this with that, yes, the satanic panic could have been mass hysteria, but a lot of things and a lot of crimes, even just in the Texas area, did happen. So things may not always be what they seem. Good night.